Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name's Gavin, and today is another episode of Monday Morning Mock Drafts, where we cover the first round of the 2022 NFL Draft, give our most recent and updated mock here. We had another recent trade after the video previous to our last episode, and that was Tyreek Hill heading to the Miami Dolphins for 5 total draft picks sent to the Kansas City Chiefs, including the number 29 overall pick, so that will impact today's mock with the Chiefs and the Dolphins, with the Chiefs now having the Dolphins pick and back-to-back selections at 29 and 30. So before we get started with today's episode, make sure to drop down and leave today's video with a like and click that subscribe button if you're new around here. Again, we do post these mock drafts every week, in addition to 1 to 2 other episodes with fantasy football content in them on a weekly basis. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let's not waste any more time, and let's get into today's episode. All right, here we go. So today we're going back to our original first overall pick here for the Jacksonville Jaguars with Evan Neal, the offensive tackle out of the University of Alabama. This is my top-rated left tackle. I suppose he could play right tackle as well, but my top-rated tackle for that matter in the 2022 draft class. Some have Ike Ekwonu out of NC State, ranked a little bit higher than Evan Neal, but I think that the physical intangibles and obviously the level of competition that Evan Neal was subjected to certainly proved the test to me that he is the top left tackle for this draft class. Trevor Lawrence really needs to have 2 bookend tackles to help keep him upright and overall to help him take the next step forward for this franchise. I don't foresee any other player besides Aiden Hutchinson or Ike Ekwonu going at this position. I think those are kind of the 2 clear needs here. The offseason behavior for the Jags, tagging Cam Robinson, bringing him back for 1 year, obviously does give some stability at that position for the short term, but you need a long-term solution, and if this is the case here, you can have both of those tackle positions solved for this up-and-coming NFL season, and that'll be a big deal. So Evan Neal, number 1 to the Jags. At number 2, then that puts the Lions in perfect position. I think that this would be the best case scenario for the Lions organization to select Aiden Hutchinson here with the number 2 overall pick. You get the high motor pass rusher to really take that defensive line to the next level, a guy who also plays very physically in the run game. And I think that this is just a perfect fit. Dan Campbell likes physical, aggressive players that love to play football. I really see Aiden Hutchinson being that, and his personality matches the culture of this Lions organization. So at number 2, I think the Lions are crossing their fingers that the Jags go tackle. So in that case, Hutchinson can fall to them at this draft selection. That leaves Kyle Hamilton here at number 3 for the Houston Texans. They get a playmaker. That's the key here to build around this defense. Hamilton can be a centerpiece for this defensive side of the ball. Lovie Smith, the new head coach for this football team. And they really, again, are just despair for talent at all positions and need someone that can be a difference maker and playmake. And that's what Kyle Hamilton can do. You get a very versatile player that can line up, get in the box. He can play as a blitzing safety, bring pressure off the edge on the quarterback, or he can drop back into coverage, guard slot receivers, guard tight ends, and really be a mismatch on that side of the ball. And that's something I think would be huge for, again, a Texans team that really, really needs a spark and some juice anywhere on the field that they can acquire it. At number 4, I've got Kayvon Thibodeaux. We're going back to this draft selection here at the number 4 overall pick. Now, Thibodeaux is not someone I regard quite as highly as an Aiden Hutchinson per se, but this is still a really good player and someone that can give you a lot. I think that Kayvon Thibodeaux can play both against the run and the pass. And while, again, I don't think he has quite the pass rush ceiling that an Aiden Hutchinson has, or even Nick Bosa, a Chase Young that we've seen in previous draft classes, I do think that he can be a consistent double-digit sack per year player for this Jets organization that could really use some more playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. This is a team coached by Robert Saleh. That's his area of expertise. And last draft, they went all in on the offensive side. So I think this year you balance things out a little bit and add some playmakers to that defensive skill group here, obviously, and put some heat on the quarterback to try and at least, you've got Josh Allen in that division now. Tua has got 2 fantastic wide receivers with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. try and apply as much pressure to that quarterback position in division as possible, and obviously all the games in your schedule. Ike Ekwonu falls here to the number 5 position for the New York Giants to take advantage of. He'll be playing most likely right tackle if this is the selection for the Giants, as Andrew Thomas is that staple left tackle for this team. He's been a consistent starter and by far their best offensive lineman on the roster as of late here. But they could really use some more help. This has been a desperately needed position to be addressed here for multiple seasons now. It feels like every year we're talking about how bad the Giants' offensive line production has been and how under duress their quarterbacks have been. So now you've got Daniel Jones, a guy that you did once believe in with an early first-round pick. And you still haven't really been able to get a clear read on who he is as a player and what his ultimate ceiling and floor is. Now, we've seen a lot closer to some of the expectations in the area of his floor because he's had some pretty miserable play when he's sitting back there getting crushed by blitzers and having pressure in his face all day, having turnovers. I remember in his rookie season, Daniel Jones was one of the highest players with total turnovers because he was losing so many fumbles, getting strip sacked and just losing control of the football, not even necessarily throwing interceptions. That's a whole separate conversation, but the fumbles were such a big issue because he was getting hit in the pocket so much. So add some stability to this offensive line. I think Ike Ekwonu, again, for someone who could be the first overall pick, having him fall here to number 5 would be a great situation for the Giants. Then at 6, I've got Malik Willis going here. Now, this mock draft does not include trades. I would not be surprised to see a trade take place where Malik Willis goes before this number 6 overall selection. However, that's the format of today's episode. We might potentially in April, once we start to see real trades play out here, start to mess with some of that stuff as well. But for today, the draft, and to this point throughout the offseason, the draft order has maintained in relation to what it is in real life and how those picks have been swapped and whatnot. But Malik Willis here at number 6. If you're a Carolina Panther fan, I know you're not satisfied with Sam Darnold at quarterback, and I know that the organization is not either. He has far too much reckless behavior, too many turnovers, too mistake-prone, and you just need a fresh change of scenery and really get a high-end draft pick in there. Now, Sam Darnold at one point in 2018 was, I believe, the 3rd overall pick in that draft by the New York Jets, but it's time to move on. Get yourself a mobile playmaker here. Malik Willis has the most highly touted skill set in the draft class from my book. And I think that he would fit in real nice with Matt Rule's scheme with a lot of playmakers to get the football to out in space. So I think this is a good fit for both parties here. Malik Willis, the top quarterback, goes at number 6. Trayvon Walker, the versatile edge threat, edge rusher, can really play multiple positions on the defensive line or line up outside on the edge if the defensive coordinator chooses to use him in that fashion. I think he's a great fit here at number 7. Could maybe even go higher. I've seen him go as early as number 4 overall in other people's mock drafts to the New York Jets. However, I've obviously got Kayvon Thibodeau ranked a little bit ahead of him. However, his versatility is really kind of what elevated his draft status so much, in addition to having a really solid performance at the NFL Combine. I think if you're going to miss out on Thibodeau here, if you're the Giants at number 7, you can still get a really, again, useful player who can play against the run and the pass, his athleticism, and then pairing that with his versatility gives you a lot of options to use him in unique ways in that front 7. So I think that adds a lot to the defensive side of the ball here for a team that has had the defense be their strength the past couple of seasons. They can start to really develop that into a tool for the offense to, once you're on the defensive side of the ball, you're getting off the field, rather quickly, and then getting that ball back to the Giants offense and seeing if they can really build what they're doing there. So I think Trayvon Walker and Ike Ekwonu would be a fantastic stack here at the 5 and 7 overall draft picks for the Giants. We'll see what happens on draft day, though. Kenny Pickett at number 8 here after moving Matt Ryan to the Indianapolis Colts for a 3rd round pick. They are in desperate need of a quarterback, and despite what some people may think, you can't convince me that Marcus Mariota is who they actually want to enter the season with as their starting quarterback. Now, I think Kenny Pickett is fairly NFL ready here. This is a guy who seems to make the right decisions on time and on target. He's a little bit older coming out of this draft class, as he is technically a super senior, I believe, in that 5th year of eligibility, but still a player who has the skills and tool sets to look for. And I think especially at the quarterback position, that extra age, you can argue, Why did it take him so long to progress and get out of college and enter into the NFL draft? But I think that kind of playing, the other side of that is that he has now increased maturity and experience under his belt that can help him step in and succeed right away. So this is a very talent-depleted roster. He doesn't really have much to work with here, from losing Calvin Ridley to suspension and Russell Gage to free agency. You've really just got Kyle Pitts to work with, a below-average offensive line. But I think that they can at least take a step forward with a new future path and end goal in mind, with Kenny Pickett going off the board here at number 8. Sauce Gardner, Ahmad Gardner out of the University of Cincinnati, is my number 9 selection here for the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks have trended and tended to be, at least the last 5 or 6 years, kind of an odd first-round drafting team. I think this is a pick that makes quite a bit of sense, though. Not going to throw the Seahawks under the bus here and just mock them some terrible pick, because their first-round picks have been rather lackluster compared to the rest of the league. And their success rate, you can pull a handful of busts out of that crop. However, Ahmad Gardner, this is a team that could really use some help on the back end, desperately needs a number 1 defensive back, and they just need to start fresh. Offense and defense, they've kind of cut ties with everyone from that past Legion of Boom era. Again, Russell Wilson now gone. Tyler Lockett is a guy who I can think of who's probably one of the longest tenured Seahawks at this point, after cutting Bobby Wagner as well. So again, starting fresh, opening a clean page of the book here on offense and defense, and maybe you can build around an elite or a player who has elite size and speed combination. A 4.41 40-yard dash for Ahmad Gardner didn't allow a single touchdown in his career at Cincinnati. You're getting a lot to work with here at the number 9 spot. At number 10, we're going to go back to offense for the Jets, and we're going to be taking my top-ranked receiver in this draft class, Garrett Wilson, a guy who I think can do it all. Reminds me a bit of Devontae Adams in his play style. Runs very, very crisp and very, very nice routes at all 3 levels of the defense. And even has better athleticism coming out of college at this point in his career than Devontae Adams did. Had a 4.38 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine, and Devontae Adams was closer to the 4.6 marker. So you give me fantastic route running, a really polished skill set, good play strength, and the ability to have elite body control at the catch point. Fantastic traits I want to see in my number 1 receiver, and I think Zach Wilson would benefit tremendously from having him at his disposal. Treylon Burks here at the number 11 pick. I've had Drake London the past couple mocks, but just tossed in another big-bodied receiver with crazy high upside. Now, Treylon Burks' 40-yard dash wasn't exactly what he was hoping for. 4.55, still nothing too terrible that you're going to be writing him off because of. This is a guy who can get out in space, get the football in his hands. Carson Wentz has had some recklessness issues, if you will. So give him a big-bodied receiver that you just got to dink and dunk short passes to and can make plays after the catch. I think this would be a big win for the Washington football team, and a skill set that would pair very nicely with Terry McLaurin, who is currently the top playmaker in that Washington Commanders offense. At number 12 here, the glaring need is very obvious for the Minnesota Vikings. This is a pick that I think that would be an absolute home run for them here. Trent McDuffie at number 12 out of the University of Washington, or you've got kind of a competition between them and LSU for who wants to be the defensive back university. But besides the point, Trent McDuffie, an extremely smooth player. I absolutely rave about him wherever he goes, at any pick, in any of these mock drafts. Super smooth, really clean, doesn't get out of phase very often. His technique is fantastic and is always in phase. And those are all things you love to hear about a cornerback. With the Vikings signing Zadarius Smith to pair opposite of Danielle Hunter, you now have solved both sides of that edge rush. That's going to be a scary unit as a Green Bay Packer fan. I am not looking forward to seeing Zadarius Smith sack his former quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, probably multiple times this coming NFL season, and I think Zadarius has a 3-year deal, so that solves that need for the foreseeable future. But now it's defensive back. They really need some help on that back end, and that's a position that's been totally depleted for them. Patrick Peterson is still a free agent, so we don't know how that's going to play out. And obviously, they've lost Jeff Gladney to off-the-field issues, a former first-round pick of theirs as well. At number 13, Derek Stingley, the next corner in this draft class that I have ranked here. I've flip-flopped between Stingley and McDuffie for the number 2 spot, but Derek Stingley falls down to the number 13 pick to the Houston Texans, adding another playmaker in the back end of that secondary. They could really use it, as I said, and they just need playmakers. His freshman season at LSU, he was a complete shutdown corner. If you've seen the great tape and practice of him battling Jamar Chase at LSU, That was really cool to watch. Obviously, they aired that during the NFL Combine, but super high upside here. Lockdown, man coverage, corner potential. Would love to see Derek Stingley and the combination of him and Kyle Hamilton heading to Houston to help them rebuild that defense and see if they can put some stuff together on the offensive side of the ball as well. Jordan Davis at number 14 here out of Georgia, the freakishly athletic, freakishly large big man to play in the interior here. You've got some aging vets inside for this Baltimore Ravens defense. And this is a guy for running a 4.78 40-yard dash at his raw size and strength that he has. He's virtually an immovable object in the run game. And he's not too highly touted as a pass rusher, not someone that's going to be applying Chris Jones level pressure in the pocket. He gets a bit winded. Obviously, if you're that big, you're going to get gassed when trying to sprint after a mobile quarterback. However, this is someone that can add some ability to just plug up lanes and eat up blockers for your edge rushers to get home. I think this would be a home run pick for the Ravens. You're looking at a team that has done some things to address the tackle positions in free agency. They've now got a couple of quality average level starters, Morgan Moses, and I forget the other guy that they brought in to hopefully solve that issue. So I'm not sure if a Trevor Penning is still in play here at this number 14 pick. And of course, they could probably address edge rusher at this spot as well. But today we're going Jordan Davis. Might switch this pick up a bit in the future. At 15, I've got Drake London, that classic big-bodied Philly wide receiver heading to the Eagles. If you're going to knock Jalen Hurts' accuracy and his ability to deliver the football on target, which is something I have done, how about we give him a bigger target to throw to? And that's what Drake London is here, a 6'5" receiver, deceptively elusive out in space, runs some pretty good routes as well. I have had my question marks about his ability to separate downfield. However, his college tape can be a little bit inconclusive because of the fact that his quarterback play was so bad that defensive backs were able to get back in phase while Drake London was kind of waiting for that ball to catch up. So not someone that's going to separate downfield as elite or as much as a Chris Olave, a Garrett Wilson, but somebody who has unteachable things like that raw size at 6'5" that those guys will never obviously have because they're not going to grow 4 to 5 more inches. So Drake London here, someone that has a lot of raw physical gifts and very competent abilities in other phases of his game. I think it could be a big asset for Jalen Hurts, who has had some big success throwing to Dallas Goedert, another bigger framed, obviously tight end in that offense. I think this could add another dynamic alongside Devontae Smith, the first-round pick. It would make 3 years in a row, I believe, of first-round picks at the wide receiver position for the Eagles, but I think that they could still use some more playmakers on that side of the ball. Back-to-back picks, the second of 3 draft picks for the Eagles here in round 1. Devontae Wyatt, the defensive lineman who played alongside Jordan Davis in the interior of that national championship defense. Heading to Philly here, you just released Fletcher Cox to then rework his deal and bring him back on a 1-year contract. So to me, that tips the hand of the relationship is more short-term than it is long-term at this point. Fletcher Cox is an established veteran, all-pro complete. I'm actually not 100% certain if he's made an all-pro team, but his level of play elevates him to that spot. He's been a fantastic pass rusher from the interior of that Eagles defense for quite some time now. In my book, he's been one of the best interior defensive linemen in the National Football League for quite some time. So you're going to need to replace that position, it seems, at some point as soon as the 2023 season. That is going to be a glaring position of need because if you're going to lose one of your best players, you're going to have to replace that with some young talent here. Devontae Wyatt is a fantastic interior pass rusher, kind of a little bit the opposite of a Jordan Davis, who is a little bit more of a run plugger. I can see Devontae Wyatt having more applications as a pass rushing talent for this Eagles defensive line. So I would love to see this pick at 16 help sustain that interior pressure post Fletcher Cox for this organization that he has been such an integral part of. I think this would be another great pick for the team at 16. Trevor Penning heads to the LA Chargers at number 17 here. They released Brian Bulaga. He had a pretty big cap hit, saved about $10 million in cap space. Now you got to go out and address that position, though. Justin Herbert can't be getting smoked off of one side. He's got one bookend tackle in Rashawn Slater, drafted in the first round last year. Go out and get a Mauler who can really help in the run game now. Austin Eckler is obviously an elite level receiving back, but he can do some damage in the run game as well. If you're opening up holes with Trevor Penning off that edge, that's certainly something that can help out this offense at 17. At number 18, I've got the Saints taking Matt Corral out of Ole Miss, really, here at the number 18 pick. This is a guy who's a playmaker. They signed Jameis Winston back for a 2-year contract, but they're still not tied to him for the long term here. You can have him sit behind Jameis Winston, and that's kind of something that you might chuckle at because Jameis Winston is not necessarily this savvy veteran quarterback that you're looking to gain a lot of advice from, because he's got a lot of advice on how to lead the National Football League in interceptions. However, I think that Matt Corral might have a higher floor long term than a Jameis Winston does, who has been plagued with those interceptions and turnovers throughout his career. So now in the post-Sean Payton era in New Orleans with Dennis Allen as a new head coach there, you can start to move on, build this offensive core up, and obviously start fresh with a new young quarterback prospect. With the third and final pick here for the Eagles, I've got Nakobe Dean going off the board at the number 19 pick. TJ Edwards is a nice inside linebacker to have, but he doesn't have the raw physical attributes that Nakobe Dean has, the instincts, and the ability to just zip all around the football field and make plays. They've been needing an off-ball linebacker for some time now, and you don't really see that position ever get addressed in mocks. You don't really see the Eagles go out and make draft selections at that position. However, I think that could really help here at the number 19 spot. Nakobe Dean, because of his smaller stature, being sub 6 feet tall, you're really seeing him get some hate in the mock draft community. His draft stock is quite lower than the production on the field would suggest. But I think that the number 19 pick here to Philly could be a nice fit here and be really great for both sides of that one. Pittsburgh here at number 20 takes their quarterback of the future. Now they signed Mitchell Trubisky to, in my eyes, be a bridge quarterback. But they get at the 20th pick one of my favorite quarterback prospects that I absolutely love in this draft, Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati. He's got a lot to like about him. When I cut on his tape, he has the cleanest throwing motion of any of the quarterbacks in this draft class. I really like what I see. The athletic measurables are fantastic as well. Had a really, really nice broad jump. A guy that ran faster 40-yard dash than Patrick Mahomes, I believe Josh Allen, and Justin Herbert. I think that was the stat that I saw. And then he's never lost a game at home in his college career, so obviously led the Cincinnati Bearcats to the college football playoff this season, and he's got quite the resume. So I really like him again. His throwing motion is fantastic. It's controlled. He doesn't necessarily have one of those elite arm talents, but I think that putting him in a Pittsburgh situation that's built on defense and running the football, he can be a very, very good game manager and someone who I think can be better than a game manager, someone that can go off script a bit, make some big throws downfield. And if you're asking him to throw around 30 times a game, I think you can win a lot of football games in the National Football League with Desmond Ridder as your quarterback here going forward. At number 21, the New England Patriots finally take a playmaker in round one. For the first time since selecting N'Keal Harry, obviously a big draft bust in the 2019 draft. Jameson Williams here, though, you get an Alabama guy to pair with your Alabama quarterback, Mac Jones, and I think that this would help a lot. They don't really have a consistent downfield target. Now, Nelson Aguilar can stretch the field a little bit, but Jameson Williams is a completely different level of player than Nelson Aguilar is at this point, and I think that based on reports of his ACL rehabbing on time, on schedule, and showing very positive signs here, I think this can be something that could potentially become a reality. I do think that Jameson Williams will hang on to round one draft capital because of the fact that his diagnosis for return is so positive right now, and we're hearing great things out of his camp. So I would expect Jameson Williams to go in round one. The 21st pick might be a little bit high for him, but I think he'd be a really good fit with the Pats. And again, they do need more playmakers at the pass catching position. At number 22 here, I've got Chris Olave heading to Green Bay. They need a wide receiver terribly bad. Allen Lazard, as it currently stands, is the number one option in that Packers offense, and Aaron Rodgers is not going to enjoy throwing to number 3 and 4 wide receivers for an entire 17-game now NFL schedule. So Chris Olave gives him some field stretching ability, elite athleticism, and really smooth routes. I think that this could be a very great combination between Rodgers and Olave. At number 23 here, I've got the Cardinals taking Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M. Look, simple here. You get a plug-and-play offensive lineman, can step in, help the run game, and protect Kyler Murray for what has been a below or subpar, or as I say, a below average or subpar offensive line ever since day one when he stepped foot into that offense back in 2019. So help give him some protection. Maybe in the second and third rounds, you can look to address the wide receiver position because obviously that is kind of a glaring need now that you have lost Christian Kirk and AJ Green remains a free agent. However, I don't think there's another offensive lineman that is quite as good in the interior, at least at the guard position, as Kenyon Green after this point here. At number 24, this is one of my favorite and most interesting draft picks in this mock here. And that's Tyler Linderbaum to the Dallas Cowboys here, the highest graded interior offensive lineman in back-to-back seasons in 2020 and 2021, again, out of the University of Iowa. And the older that this Dallas Cowboys offensive line becomes, the less of an elite unit I really see them to be. You're looking at a offensive line group that was once far and away the most dominant in the National Football League. It has certainly eroded here as of late. And the older that guys like Zach Martin, another interior offensive lineman for that Dallas group, gets, or even a Tyron Smith, their left tackle, they're starting to be less and less productive. And whatever way you look at it here, I see three spots that could easily be improved in the interior, whether it's Connor McGovern, Tyler Biadasz, or Zach Martin when he's injured. I think that there's a lot to be added here. Tyler Linderbaum is certainly a step up over Tyler Biadasz, who was getting pushed around at times last season and had some pretty low lows for that Dallas Cowboys offensive line. If they want to get back to being a balanced 50-50 run-pass team, they're going to need to readdress that offensive line. They just had to let La'el Collins go. He signed with Cincinnati. So you're losing a lot of guys to depth and money issues because of Dak Prescott's contract. You're losing guys in terms of availability while they might still be under contract simply because they're getting injured. That's the case of Zach Martin and Tyron Smith. And if you remember back to a guy like a Travis Frederick, it's been a while since you've had an elite center who's really led the way for this offense. So I think Linderbaum has the potential, to be one of the best players at his individual respective position here. And I think that this could be a home run for Dallas because then they have some ability to have some depth to shuffle up that offensive line whenever issues arise for them next season. At number 25, that leaves Charles Cross here to fall all the way down to the Buffalo Bills, where Charles Cross, in my book, is far better than the 25th pick in this draft. I think I've had him go as high as number 6 overall to the Carolina Panthers because I absolutely love what he brings to the table as a pass protector, and I think that if by some way he fell down to 25 here to the Buffalo Bills, there's no way they could pass on him. When I last saw Josh Allen on a football field, he was what felt like running for his life on every snap of that game against Kansas City down the stretch, with his offensive linemen, letting pressure off the edge instantly, and he was running for his life. And now the sacks allowed number for the Bills offensive linemen were not terrible last season, but when you've got a guy as big, as strong, and as mobile as Josh Allen, he's going to get out of a lot of those sacks, and he's going to get that ball out of bounds, throw it downfield to a receiver, or unfortunately throw an interception. And so he avoided those sacks, but inevitably he is being highly pressured and having a lot of unwanted pressure in his face. And that is something that Charles Cross can absolutely address here. Not someone who is an elite run blocker, but the Bills don't run the football all that much as it is. And his quick feet and his ability to get off the football, I think, can really help Josh Allen at least gain an extra half to full second in the pocket, obviously on passing down. So this would be a huge pick for the Bills at 25. I think that would be a very welcomed sight by Bills fans. Because I've said this multiple times this offseason, but it felt like the Bills' lack of a pass rush against Kansas City versus Kansas City's pass rush or ability to generate pressure against Josh Allen was partially the difference in that football game. At 26 here, the Tennessee Titans will select Zion Johnson out of Boston College. Now, this is a guy I've got as my 1B offensive guard in this class behind Kenyon Green, a guy who had another really nice NFL combine, so definitely a riser after that event back in obviously earlier March. But I think the Titans could continue to just bolster the depth and the talent they have in that interior offensive line. Obviously, when you're a team predicated on having success off of running the football and pushing defensive players downfield, you're going to need some more talent, some more youth, and some more physicality up front. That's something that obviously Johnson brings to the table and would be a nice asset for Tennessee there at 26. Daxton Hill out of Michigan remains the pick here at 27 from last mock to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They did sign Logan Ryan, but I think that he's going to fulfill that nickel corner position for this Buccaneers defense. I could see Daxton being a fantastic cover the top of the defense and just fly around and make interceptions, obviously, when quarterbacks try to throw that ball downfield. Had a fantastic season this year playing for Michigan and obviously being somewhat of a ball hawk for that secondary. Pairing him with Antoine Winfield, I think would give Tampa one of the best young safety groups in the NFL. At number 28 here, the Packers doubled down on wide receiver, taking George Pickens. For me, it's clear and obvious. Wide receiver and interior defensive lineman are the needs for Green Bay. And with Pickens here on the board, you get yourself a very good athletic prospect, 6'3", 200 pounds, and can fly down the field. Obviously has a lot of work to be done to develop his underneath route running game, but I think that obviously this is a wide receiver room that has done that for players in the past and can obviously prove to take this elite prospect that they have and turn him into a not necessarily guaranteed elite player, but a very good one at the very least, and someone who can be productive, hopefully, by the quarter or mid-season mark for the Packers this season. George Karlaftis falls down here, the number 29 pick to the Kansas City Chiefs. A very good, well-rounded prospect, but overall his ceiling is not quite as high as we've seen some other guys in today's mock draft. This is a player who I think that can play the run and the pass for Kansas City and just be a consistent force of disruption for this defense. Obviously, with the loaded quarterback and offensive talent you've got in the AFC, you're going to need some players to step in and make some plays for your defense. I think Karlaftis can certainly do that. And maybe even off the edge, you put him on the other side of Frank Clark. Then you've got yourself Chris Jones, the interior, pushing the pocket there. That could be a very, very successful trio here as we move into this season. And then with their back-to-back picks, they'll take Christian Watson with the second selection here. This is someone who I don't expect to be the most refined and ready to go player day one, but you've got to make a playmaker or elevate someone to make plays for this team now that Tyreek Hill is no longer stretching the field. Christian Watson gives you a combination of both elite speed and elite size at 6'5", can fly down the field, and then obviously having that height as a weapon to be used with Patrick Mahomes is going to be an incredible weapon. You've got Juju, you've got Mecole Hardman, you've got Marquez Valdes-Scantling from Green Bay they just brought in. Christian Watson certainly has the upside to be a late first-round pick here. I think he could be a very, very good fit with Patrick Mahomes. And obviously having Andy Reid as a play caller, he will find ways to get him the football and to get him involved in this offense here as soon as next season. Devin Lloyd at number 31 here falls to the Cincinnati Bengals, someone who I continue to have slipped further and further because his draft stock took a bit of a hit, obviously with his poor NFL Combine testing, especially in the athletic markers with that 40-yard dash being subpar. But the Bengals, when I look at their roster, they've addressed the offensive line fairly well. They could still use a center, but with Linderbaum off the board here, I don't know if that's too much of an applicable need for the first round. But Devin Lloyd out of Utah, I think, can be an upgrade over Jermaine Pratt, who is their current starting inside linebacker, and I think ultimately missed some plays in the Super Bowl. He was a fairly consistent force throughout the playoffs, made some plays here and there, but I think the ceiling is a lot higher for a player like Devin Lloyd. His IQ is off the charts, and you've got a guy who his play speed is a lot better than his testing speed was. He's rarely, out of position to make the tackle, and he always seems to be having his nose in the play. So he's frequently around the football. That's where he is almost at all times. And I think that this would be quite the steal and value pick with him falling all the way down to 31. And then at 32 here, it just seems too perfect. Boye Mafe is the best player available with the highest upside at a position of need for the Lions. And if you add Boye Mafe and Aiden Hutchinson in round one of this draft class, I think you're getting to a position where your defensive front is looking incredibly formidable as a Lions fan, and you should feel very good about where you're at. Now, playmakers, especially at the wide receiver position, are incredibly needed with the limitations of a Jared Goff. You're going to need guys who can get the ball out to in space and obviously do things with the rock under their arm. However, with how many playmakers and wide receivers in particular I had going round one here, there isn't really too many guys justified or having a warranted draft position here. The only one I can really think of that I did not select here was Jahan Dotson. And I think that would be a slight reach. And you've got guys on the roster who I think can satisfy that role, or multiple players who can stretch the field, be an explosive guy out in space, whether that be Khalif Raymond, Amon-Ra St. Brown, whatever the case might be. You've got players who I think can do the things that he would do for you at a similar or slightly lower level. So Mafe to me is the pick that makes the most sense. Every time I do this, it's kind of no man's land territory because this pick is going to be entirely dependent on who's available in the draft, and this is something I did over and over again last season. Not saying I'm going to be correct here because obviously there is a million other ways they could go with this pick, but over and over again with the 32nd pick last year, I mocked Joe Tryon to the Buccaneers because I just felt that despite who else the other teams were going to end up picking, he was the one remaining almost every time that just made the most sense. And lo and behold, whatever happened on draft day, Joe Tryon was the pick for the Buccaneers. So, again, not saying that this is a lock to be the pick here for the Lions, but I do think it makes a lot of sense. And with their positions of need, I think, Boye Mafe makes a lot of sense to me. So, thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode. If you enjoyed, make sure to drop down and leave a like, and obviously click that subscribe button before you head on out. I apologize if today's video audio is a bit nasally. I'm currently dealing with somewhat of a cold or some sort of sickness, so wasn't exactly the cleanest or easiest mock for me to get through. So if you're still around here at this point in the video, thank you very much for making it to this point and dealing with me for the entirety of today's episode. So thank you guys one more time so much for tuning in. I will see you guys later this week for our next episode. Peace out.